guys, we're back on the build. Right now, I'm working on the glass for Fiero Red. And I'm going to show you how I figured out how to line up my mirrors on these cars so that if you're building one of these, maybe this tip will be handy for you. Now, to do this, you have to have more than one of these, and ta-da, I do. So I had already installed the mirror on this car. Now, to try and keep them all even, what I'm doing is I make a template. What I do is I use the first one that I've done. What I was happy with the mirror wound up, and I use that as a template for every one I make afterwards. I put a piece of tape across, I trace out the top of the glass, and I mark where the mirror is in the glass. Now for the glass of the next car, I just lay my tape across the edge of the glass, match it up to the lines I just made, the template I just made, and boom, I have a perfect alignment point for my mirror there. So now how to attach that to the mirror to the glass, because when you're doing this, it becomes a major pain to try and attach the glass. So what I do is I use a little bit of the Fun Tack, Tack and Stick, Blue Tack, whatever you want to call it, all sorts of different names. And what I'm going to do is use that to hold my mirror right there. And now all I have to do is line my glass up to the point where I want the mirror to mount, which is right there. And if I just maneuver it a little bit, I get the mirror at the angle that I want. It'll stay there in the blue tack. And there we have our mirror installed. Well, not installed yet, but at least in a position to be installed. Now, just have to make sure that the mirror is going to be sitting straight the way it should in the car. Okay, I do believe that that is going to work there, but I think I want this at a different angle. Right there, that is going to work. And I want to turn it a little bit towards the driver. Because, you know, in a scale model, it's very important which way the mirror faces. Right there, I'm going to be happy with. Okay, now, first thing I'm going to do is just darken the mounting point of the mirror. Just so that doesn't give, you don't see the red plastic through it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Tester's clear part cement, because if you do make a mistake, this stuff is very easy to get off. So that's going to go right there. Make sure we have our mirror nice and clean, because once we glue that on there, there's not really much we're going to be doing about touching this side of the glass again. All right. on my, a little bit of glue on my glue sheet here. And then we're just going to put a dab of glue right there on the right. So now we're just going to drop the glass right. And this is what we did not hope for. Got my fingers stuck on the tape, and that spoiled everything. So this is why we love that clear parts of glue, because it comes off very, very easily. Basically, you can just rub it right off, especially if it hasn't dried yet. Went through a lot of effort to polish out this glass, and we do not want to have anything. There we go. All right, we'll put another little drop of glue on there. There we go. Now that glue is transparent, and I'm right on the tape again. So let's just make the same mistake we just made previously again. There we go. Now we just let it sit. Now this is definitely going to take some time to dry, so we're not going to touch it again until we're ready to move the whole thing, and hopefully we won't knock the mirror off. Now what you can also do is, which I should have done, was put a little bit of front tack on this side here, so that when I'm fitting it, I can mark my position of the glass and the mirror. That way it just goes in the same way every single time. But we got what we needed out of this. Now we have to set this aside. Okay, now, as stated on a previous video, I have the border painted on the rear glass. The glass is all polished out. This glass actually had some tire burn in it, and I managed to pretty much save the glass. There's still some slight imperfections in it, but once it's installed in the car, you won't even notice that, because it looks crystal clear now. So now we have to adjust our mounting for this glass. As I said before, if you've built this model, you'll know that the rear glass does not, don't know if you can see it here, but it does not attach on the sides, because it's just the shape of the glass and the shape of the body are quite a bit different. We're not looking at Tamiya precision here on the 1980s kit. Now, the glass, the car has tabs on the inside. Here, 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 and here, which are supposed to line up with the glass, but they do not. So the most you're going to get are the 2 tabs on the roof itself, not on the sides lining up. As you can see, there's going to be a gap, which we will be dealing with that afterwards. Let's just make sure we clean all of this up. Now, to line up the glass, we're going to need the glass itself and our interior. As our interior, the glass mounts in this channel here on the interior, so we're going to make sure that the glass is sitting straight by installing the glass first, and before it cures, we're going to put our interior in to hold the glass in the position we want. And once it's dried, then we can remove the interior and finish up our glass installation by treating the sides of the glass that don't actually contact anything. So let's go ahead and put this rear glass in. Now, before we do that, we have to get tape ready because we're going to have to tape everything together. I've already shown you this once, so we're just going to speed this up so that you guys don't have to sit through the same thing again. So, cue the music. Alright guys, now that we have the windows all set up, you can see where I did the rear window here. Now, as I said before, the rear glass doesn't meet the edges of the body. So what I did in order to seal those gaps was that I took the clear cement, the clear tester's window cement, and after I had the window glued into place, I filled those gaps with the clear cement in order to make a seal so that you can't see light leaks coming through the side glass. If it's possible to see it at all, I'm not even sure. So now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of flat black paint and cover those gaps there, and we'll have our sealed off glass for the interior. And for that, I'm using my Tamiya XF1 flat black, one of my favorite paints of all time. So let's get on that. Alright, so there we go. We now have our window in there and sealed against the body. Looking really good there. We have our black trim painted. A little touch up there. Alright guys, just wanted to show you guys a little something on the just about perfect fit of the windshield in this car. I already went over how I installed them on Fiero Blue. So Fiero Red is just going to be snippets of the construction and just, you know, whatever little mental notes I make of the build-up of the car, which I think I want to share with you guys. This windshield glue that is safe fits perfectly. Whatever you want to say about some of the other issues with this kit, they really did put some care into how some of these parts went together. So the glue only as this windshield sits fully flush with the body and very and sits very, very tightly. I mean, it fits right in, as you can see how the roof line and the windshield just kind of flow into each other. Let's see if I can get you guys. There we go. I mean, that is very nicely done. If we can keep it focused. And that's the weird thing about this kit. There are so many places where they really knocked it out of the park, and then again a bunch of places where they made just really silly decisions and mistakes. I mean, the front compartment is really nicely detailed. Yeah, it's missing a couple of things, but overall it makes a really good presentation. So overall, it's coming together, looking pretty good. So we're just going to keep going and get as much of this done as possible. In a little bit of time that we have. Okay, guys, latest update again. Just like on Fiero Blue, the chassis is a little bit warped. So if you bring the front end up to make contact where it's supposed to, the rear end droops down. Push the rear end up, the front droops down. So just like I explained on Fiero Blue, you're going to have to take the chassis and clamp it down both front and rear in order to get it to seat fully on the body. Now what I do is I clamp down the front first, glue that down,
which is going to help me.
Which is why there's only tape holding it right now. I'll let that dry, and then I go to the rear and
from STS Decals.
You can see I've got the polishing rag to protect the paint, but as you can see, I've got it clamped down to keep the rear
for all the detail portions
seated
of
fully
these
to the body.
I took photographs of all of the labels,
so that
or
way
at
the
least most of
chassis
them.
will be as
They're
straight as
actually
it
on the
can
real
be
car,
when
and send
everything
it to
comes
them,
together.
and then with a lot of correspondence back and forth,
So now
and
we're gonna
they
let
are
that
really
sit and
good
set
with
up,
getting
and
in
then we're
contact with
going
you and
to
finding out exactly what you want.
start working on the rear bumper
I
and the
received
wheels.
these today, which are very,
Be back
very
when
cool.
that's done.
These are the custom decals that are going to be going on these cars to replicate the two cars exactly that these models are being built for. He has his custom taillight bar. He has the taillight lenses from Keith Goodyear, which he had made with the Racer X logo. If you're a Speed Racer fan, you know exactly what that is. We're putting his plates on it, and we have all of the decals and labels that they made for me, including the Vecchi label, which includes all of the emissions equipment. We have our, well, these are actually photographs of the ones from my car. These are your, let me see if I can find a little something better to point with. These are the RPO codes for all the options listed on the car. We have all the various labels and decals, which are for various items on the car. This is for the big label that's stuck onto the hood for using the jack. So basically, we're going to be installing all of these on both Fiero Red and Fiero Blue. We also have new GT decals for the sail panels. As you know, the ones that I used were from the original kits over 40 years old, and they did, well, about 40 years old, or close to it, and they didn't really survive the process. Now, they also included these decals, 78 for, I guess if I'm going to do a race car build, I now have some numbers I can play with there. And they also included, this is pretty cool, their logos on several different types of and sizes of decals, which can be used also for race car livery. That's actually very cool. So we're going to go through the process of using these, and we're going to see how they work out. But they're looking pretty good so far. Alright guys, I have just grabbed my MR2 test body and applied the first of the extra decals that STS sent me. And as you can see, they apply beautifully. They're not too thick. They have a nice matte finish. It's clear printing. And I applied Microsol 1 and 2. And I basically just put it through everything that I would normally do when applying a decal to see how it would withstand up to everything. And as you can see, the Microsol softened it enough. It went right into the panel and didn't break up, no cracking. The decal just actually applied very smoothly and very easily. Now they are not pre-cut, so you will have to trim them to size. But other than that, they seem to be excellent quality decals. So I am very happy with it so far. Another little update on this build. So now we're going to start applying some of them to the moving along with this thing underhood. We're adding the wheel spacers. Will not be sealed in by clear coat because on the rear car, these are just
what we learned on Fiero
basically
Blue, we put to use
labels
here
that are
to
slapped
do this
onto the
even better than
body
we
of the
did
car.
before.
Well, not to the body,
Whereas
but on
on
the
Fiero
interior
Blue,
of the
I
car,
cut
such as on
the
the
mounting
radiator,
pins off.
the underside of
What
the
I
hood,
decided to do
under the
on
deck
this
lid.
one, in order to give a little
So in
more
order to keep
rigidity
it
and a little more strength to the wheels, the way they are
as
going to be
realistic as
holding onto
possible,
the
we won't be sealing them in. We're just going to put them on
brake rotors here.
and let them
I
sit
left the
way
pins
they
in
normally
and I
would.
just drilled
And
through.
we'll see how everything comes out.
The
Should
hub.
add some really nice detail to the underhood portion
So
of the
now
car.
we're just going to slot the hub over the pin, and then we'll glue it to the pin, which is going to make that a little bit stronger than what we had on Fiero Blue. I mean, you're not going to be playing with these things and rolling them across a room, so... But every little bit of structural rigidity that we can add to it will just make the model a bit more durable. And we all know how fragile these things are. Now, did the same here on the front, but whereas on the rear, I cut the rear flange off so that it sits flush against the brake rotor here. On the fronts, I actually had to increase the track by leaving the rear flange on. Let's see if we can show you that. There you go. You see that? The rear flange is on to push the hub out further on the front, as the track on the front is going to be a bit wider than the rear, just to keep the tires flush with the body. So that also, when I was mounting the hub on the front, I cut a slot in the mounting flange for the hub to go around the control arm. Whereas on Fiero Blue, since I had cut the pin and everything off, I hadn't done that, and I didn't get quite a precise a fit as I do, like the way I have here. Because now since I cut that slot in the hub and it goes around the control arm now, instead of pressing against it, you get a bit firmer and a bit more secure of a attachment to the spindle. So I'm much happier with the new and improved method of adding spacers to this kit. Alright guys, just wanted to give you a quick look at the wheels and tires as we're doing a test fit. These aren't going to be the final wheels and tires in the car.
But you can see now how the tires now just reach the edge of the body the way they should, and don't stick out the way the kit intends you to build it. Really got to clean this entire body off. It's getting very filthy with all the handling I'm doing. So you can't really see where the spacers are, but trust me, they're there. You can see them here. So it's going to take a bit of measurement because we got to make sure we get the ride height correct on both sides so that it sits square and flat on the surface. And once we do that, we'll be ready to